Sleeve up, samurai. We've got a meta to burn.
What's up? How's everybody doing? Welcome to the first episode of Sleeve Up Samurai, where we are going to talk about Cyberpunk trading card game from Weird Co. First episode, I thought I was going to have a co-host. Family stuff did not work out, so it's just me tonight. I am Banana Crapshoot. For those of you that have played Star Wars Unlimited or that have played Star Wars Destiny or Marvel Champions, I have created content previously for all those games and played those games. For those of you that don't know me, I go by Banana Crapshoot. I like talking about games. I like playing games. And I'm excited about Cyberpunk. So here we are. I made a video on our YouTube, on the SAGA YouTube last week. I'm going over like the Kickstarter campaign before it ended. Might be 2 weeks at this point, but it's a game I'm really excited about. I like Cyberpunk, but mainly I just like good games. And so far, I think it's going to be a good game. So, first episode, a little bit about me, why I'm excited about the game. Going to talk about some mechanics, and then one interesting discussion point that I really would have liked to have my co-host for tonight. But you can let me know in the comments, and we can have the discussion on Discord or in the comments around what you guys think about the topic I'm going to bring up. But first of all, a little bit about me. Like I said, Banana Crapshoot, been playing games like most of you probably tuning in a long time. Started when I was a kid with the Score Dragon Ball card game, and then played a little bit of Magic, a little bit of Legend of the Five Rings. None of it competitively because I was like really young. Played the Star Wars TCG, like at home, casually, kitchen table type stuff. And then when I got older, when I got out of the army, got into Magic a little bit, and then into the Panini had redone the Dragon Ball card game, so I was playing that, and then found out about Star Wars Destiny, got into that, and then played Ashes a little bit, then some of the LCGs, Lord of the Rings, Marvel Champions, really into that, and then from there, when Star Wars Destiny ended, I was playing Dragon Ball Super card game, Final Fantasy TCG, and then COVID hit and Star Wars Destiny had ended, and I just kind of lost the allure of trading card games over that period, but got into like Versus System 2 PCG, which was on the decline, which is a cool game. Played that in like some online stuff, and then Star Wars Unlimited was announced, so I've been playing that. And then I also like Union Arena. I think that's fun. I like Final Fantasy TCG still. I don't play it. All these games I don't play as much as I would like to. Real life gets in the way. 3 kids, full-time job, coach, youth, sports, and kids are active in activities, so that takes a majority of my time. But I do enjoy games. I like playing them, and I like talking about them. So here we are. And the first segment is going to be called the Uplink. That's going to be news, roundups, segments talking about what is going on in the world of Cyberpunk TCG. And obviously, the big one is it had just ended on Kickstarter about a week ago. And currently, with late pledges, we are at 27,693,000 with late pledges. That's huge. It is the number 3 Kickstarter of all time. The 2 ahead of it are like 3D printers. And it is by far the biggest Kickstarter tabletop game of all time. And so late pledges happening now. I'm sure you either know about the game or are interested in it if you're checking this out. If I just find you randomly, I will still have the Kickstarter. I'll link it in the show notes because late pledges are still open. And then I will also link the official website. But that's really it for the news around the game. Is that the main Kickstarter ended and late pledges are now open. We'll start shipping out Q3 if everything goes on time. Most Kickstarters do not go on time. I can't think of a Kickstarter that I got on time, actually. So Q3 or Q4 of 2026, we can expect to see some of these products rolling in to you, to stores. We're going to have another section we're going to call the Ripper Doc. We're going to highlight like one card and look at it. Tonight, I'm going to skip that and get to talking about just core mechanics of the game, things I like about the game, things that I have excited about the game. So, if you are unaware, Cyberpunk trading card game, 40 to 50 card deck, and you build your deck. That does not include 3 legends. Legends are, so Cyberpunk TCG, you're playing as like, you're running a crew in Night City, and you trying to do jobs and take over and be the best crew in Night City. So your opponent, the rival, is a rival crew. So you can hire legends, which are characters that you have interacted with if you played the Cyberpunk 2077 video game, such as V. Royce from Maelstrom, Yorinobu Arasaka, Saburo Arasaka, Victor, Jackie, Dum Dum. These are all legends that we have seen and that you can build decks around. Those are the core things. The legends do not start in your deck. They start in what's called a legends area. They start face down. You don't know where they are. They're randomly selected where you have them. But you can use them as resources. And when you flip them, there's passive abilities that can trigger. There's abilities that can trigger when they flip. There is, some of them have the go solo keyword, which allows you to play them as units on the field. So that would be similar to like deploying a leader in Star Wars Unlimited. But it's different how it functions here. And you draw an initial hand of 6 cards. The leaders also they give you RAM, which is a value. So how don't I just bring up one of these cards here? And then I'll try to describe it the best I can. The won't be the best for the audio only, but so your leader in the top left will have their cost if they're able to go solo. So the top left is the cost of a card, and your legend, if it has a cost there, that's how much you pay for it to go solo. In the top right, it tells you what type of card it is, and then below that is a RAM value. So for the legends, that is for deck construction. Every game has a color pie for the most part, and some games like Star Wars Unlimited use aspect icons, and if you have those icons, you don't have to pay extra. But if you don't have that icon, then you have to pay like a resource tax to play it. So you can play any card there, but you might have to pay more if you don't have those aspect icons among your leader and base. The legends in Cyberpunk, the different colored RAM, if a legend gives you 2 RAM, and that's the only legend you have of that card in your deck, you can only have 2 cost cards. So the ability to pay costs of cards, like the RAM, tells you how expensive those cards can be, if that makes sense. And then below the cost of the card is a little eddy symbol. So how resources work is more similar to Lorcana, where some cards are inkable that can be put down as resources, and some cards are not. Star Wars Unlimited, any card can be played as a resource. In this game, they have to have that eddy icon for them to be played as resources in your eddy zone. Your legends all have that, and you can exhaust them when they're flipped or when they're face down. You can exhaust them to pay the cost of cards. So the RAM value, just to reiterate, because I think I slightly misspoke. The legend, tells you how much RAM they give you. And then the cards also have a RAM value on them. So if a card has 6 cost and it takes 4 RAM to play, like the Armored Minotaur that can be found in the print and play and the Alpha Kit decks, it's a 6 cost unit, but it requires 4 RAM. So you would need 2 legends, each giving you access to 2 red RAM to play that cost card because it requires 4 RAM. Another one would be some cards need odd costed RAMs, like a Swordwise Hustle is a red that requires 1 RAM to be played. It's a 3 cost unit. And there's some others that require 3 RAM. So that is a balancing lever and a deck building, deck construction lever. This whole conversation is just talking about how the color pie works in deck building. Your legend gives you RAM value. If you only have 2 RAM value from a legend, you can't play cards that require more than 2 RAM. Yeah, and then the bottom right of cards gives you the power of that card. If it says a number and then there's a plus sign, that means there's ways that it can get a higher attack bonus. Like Royce is a red legend that has 6 power, but on your turn, he gets +2 power for each equipped gear. So his printed stats are 6+, and then the ability tells you where it would get the additional from. So legends, you have 3 legends. Their RAM values and their color pie dictate how you can build your deck, 40 to 50 cards. And then you also need a set of polyhedral dice. So that's your D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, D20. And you randomly select who goes first. First player has their 3 legends face down. They will exhaust 2 of them or spend them as they do in this game. And the first player only starts with 1 ready resource available to them. They will draw a card. They will roll in one of their dice. Those dice are the gigs. They represent the jobs you're trying to get done in Night City. And then the value you roll is called your street cred. Your street cred is another mechanic, another layer of ways they can pull levers to adjust the power level on cards. So there's some cards that, like Yorinobu Arasaka, who is another red legend. The red legends I just have all up on my screen. He has an ability that has a kicker based on the amount of street cred you have. So when you attack the first time on your turn with the friendly Arasaka unit, you get to draw a card. But if you control 20 or more street cred, then you do not have to discard a card from your hand. But if you do have less than 20 street cred, after you draw, you have to discard a card from your hand. So, and there's different things like there's a card that triggers off of 7 street cred. So there's some cards that want you to have a lot. There's some that don't care how much you have as much, and some cards that don't care at all. But just to know, that is a mechanic, that is a lever that they can pull to card balance. So you roll in your gig. Now on your turn, you go into the main phase. So the main phase, you can play cards. You can call a legend. You can pay 2, which is you pay 2 resources, and you flip one of your legend cards over. So that's calling a legend. You would trigger any flip effects, and you can play out cards, play out units. Units cannot attack the turn they are played, but any printed things on them is relevant the turn they are played. And then you can go to the attack phase if you have a unit that is able to attack. Once you go to the attack phase, that is the last part of your turn, so you can't like play cards, then attack, then play more cards. You can't do that. Once you attack, that's it. You can attack as many times as you can, but after your attack phase is over, you cannot go back and try to do other things. On the defensive attacks, if I'm getting attacked by my rival, I can, if I have a blocker in play, I can redirect the attack to the blocker instead of a unit. You can only attack spent units. You can attack the player directly. And if someone is attacking the player or one of your spent units and you have a blocker, you can make the blocker the subject of that attack instead. If the player is attacked and there is no blocker, then the person that did the damage gets to steal a gig dice. So the way you win the game is starting your turn controlling 6 gigs. So, like I said, start your turn, you'll draw a card, you're rolling a gig dice, you'll ready your stuff, you can play cards, do things, call legends. Then you go to the attack phase, you're trying to hit the rival and steal their gigs, get the street cred off of them. And then, yeah, so each turn you roll in one of your gig dice. So the game starts on like a clock. You start the game really with 4 resources, even though the first player can only spend 2. And then you're on a clock because you have 6 turns each player. And the earliest turn you'd be able to win the game, I think, is 4 or 5 because till there's actually 6 dice in play. And there's going to be another turn in between that. So it's like 4 or 5 turns. That is as short as a game could go. But so far in the games I've played, they usually go to 6 or 7. The game ends as soon as someone starts their turn with 6 gig dice, unless, so once you can roll in any of your gig dice when you're at that step in your turn, and the d20 has to be rolled in last. Once both players roll in their d20, and then they eat, there's like another turn, and then it starts overtime, and then to win the game when it goes to overtime is the first person to control 7 dice. Doesn't matter at what point they control 7 dice. Once they control 7 dice, they win. So the games I've played so far, it's been real like tug of war throughout the whole match, back and forth. And I've gone to overtime twice, and the games have not taken long. But that kind of leads me into the mechanical topic I want to talk about, and that has to deal with deck archetypes. Traditional deck archetypes, and if and how they would develop in Cyberpunk. So traditional card games, there's a big 3 as far as deck archetypes go. So you have your aggro, you have your mid-range, and then you have your control. Those are like the 3 main deck strategies. So aggro, in most games, you're trying to either like deplete an opponent's life total, destroy their base, whatever it is, deal enough damage. Most of the time, the way to win the game is by dealing damage to your opponent or destroying a base or a tower or something. In this game, you're trying to control the dice. And since we are on a clock and the turns are structured in the way they are, and the game is structured the way it is with those turns and like the tug of war, because you're not dealing damage to a life total or a base, it's about the dice and just getting a free attack through. My main question I was having with myself and that I wanted to talk about is aggro can't really exist in the traditional sense because you like weenie rush can't be a thing. Like you can play units out, but if I have 4 1-cost units and I'm the second player and I can start with 3 ready legends that are face down, and then I can sell a card to have 4 resources available to me. If I play 4 1-cost units, that doesn't really benefit me at that moment because I can only steal maybe 1 gig dice from my opponent. So weenie rush isn't really beneficial in the traditional sense. And then control decks on the other end of that. So there is a mill condition. If your deck hits 0 cards in your deck, you lose. So there could be like a mill strategy for control, but traditional control decks in most games want to slow the game down, remove units, make the game draw out forever. And on the other end, that doesn't really work here either because both players are on a clock because of how the gig dice work and how overtime works. So once you hit turn 7, turn 8, like somebody's going to lose because somebody's going to get dice. Like there's no way to keep drawing out the game because you are put on a clock by the game mechanics and the way the game is structured itself. So mid-range is like the one, you want to control the board, deal damage, you want to deal with units, deal damage. But there's another game that is similar not in how the game is played, but how traditional archetypes I think don't apply, it'd be Marvel Snap. So Marvel Snap is also on a timed turn structure. It's very different how you win the game, obviously, but traditional aggro, mid range, and control deck archetypes don't work in that game. But what ended up happening is you have tempo, combo, and disrupt is what I would call like the three main archetypes in that deck. So the tempo decks, they want to go wide. They want to get as much power as possible. It's kind of like aggro, but it's not really. And then the combo decks are trying to look for those big swings, those 2 or 3 cards you can put together to do crazy things. And then the disrupt decks are trying to, burn your units, your opponent's cards, move your opponent's cards from one location to another, trying to freeze or minus. So that's like the control in that game is more disruption versus removal. There is a little bit of removal, but it's very, very light. So I'm curious if that kind of archetype structure is what we will see as like the main archetypes, where it's instead of aggro, mid-range, and traditional control as you think of it, it turns into tempo, combo, and disrupt. So that's the conversation I really wanted to have with my co-host, somebody I wanted to throw that idea off of. So we're gonna have that conversation either in Discord. You can hit me up, Banana Crapshoot. I am in the main Cyberpunk Discord. You can find me there. You can DM me. You can find me on Twitter, wherever, Facebook. You can find me. Also, there is a community Facebook group I started. I will link that in the show notes as well. While I'm thinking of it. But yeah, what do you think? Do you think the traditional aggro, mid-range, and control archetypes found in most card games would be applicable here? And if so, how, with the way the game is structured? Or do you think the way I'm thinking it's going to end up being is you have more of a tempo, combo, and disrupt way the game will develop archetype-wise? So let me know what you think. I think it's an interesting discussion. So a couple other segments we'll have on the show. The armory will be like deck techs. Obviously, we're not going to have that today. We don't have enough cards. There's like 48 cards that we actually know what they do out of the 140, which also set size I'll touch on real quick. I think it's fine. I know some people were hoping for a big set. Like Star Wars Unlimited had like 252 cards in its first set. I don't think it's a huge deal. Bandai, most of those games are around that 130, 120, 140 set size, and it's fine. I'm not really worried about it. I think it's fine for a first set, so nothing to worry about. Johnny's rant probably be like the topic of the day. I'm not sold on that segment title just yet, but what I got is Johnny's rant. That'll be like the main topic of the day, so that should have been my archetype discussion. And then how we are going to end the shows most times is with our street cred segment, which is going to be questions from the community, whether through email, Discord, private message, whatever. And I do have a bunch of questions that people asked, so I'll get into street cred because the main thing I want to talk about tonight was just introducing myself, talk about the game itself a little bit, and then the archetype discussion was the main thing I wanted to talk about tonight. So my buddy Sam, who, if you've played Star Wars Unlimited, you probably know who he is. He's topped a bunch of events, won a bunch of PQs, always does well, good player. He, as far as I know, doesn't know anything really about Cyberpunk TCG other than I'm backing it on Kickstarter. So he asked me a few questions. He said, question number 1, why should I want to play this game? And the reason, Sam, that you should want to play this game and any game, the most important is that it is fun. It is fun. The games I've played so far, even the Alpha Cat print and play decks, even though they're very vanilla and bland, there's a constant tug of war. You never feel like you're out of it. The game is just fun. The little flair of dice, and I know you played Star Wars Unlimited or Star Wars Destiny that had the dice baked into game mechanics. This does it a little differently. Gives more of a nod to its start as a tabletop RPG, which I appreciate. I kind of like just rolling dice is fun, even if it's just one. So the game is fun. That's the number one reason. To your question. Number two, how do you play the game? So I kind of explained how deck building works. And so you have your 40 to 50 card deck, you have your 3 legends. I explained already how RAM kind of works for deck construction purposes. And then play units, you can play gear, and programs are like your events. They're called programs. You're trying to attack your unit. On defense, there is a defense step. So when you attack, any attack triggers would happen. And then on defense, there's 2 things you can do. Well, there's 3 things. One is you can pass and just let it through. I guess there's 4 things. One is you can pass, let it through. 2, if you have a blocker, you can assign a blocker to that attack instead of taking it to your face. The third thing you can do is you can call one of your legends on the defense step. So if you have 2 resources standing, you can only call a legend once per turn. So if I, on my turn, flip a legend and I have 2 resources available and my opponent attacks me, it's not my turn, it's their turn, I can pay the 2 remaining resources in the defense step to flip a legend. Also, call a legend. That I guess it's calling a legend is the game term used. And then the last thing you can do is play a quick hack, which is a event card. It's a program, but the quick hacks are specifically on the defense step of an attack. So just wanted to throw that in there. And then question number 3, are there going to be events at launch to play the game? And if so, how would I find them? How you would find them at the moment, I do not have a perfect answer for. I think it is roughly 4,000 local game stores have signed up for Weirdco's retailer program for Cyberpunk TCG. And they do have a basic OP structure listed. And in the casual tier of things, it does start with pre-release events. So there will be pre-release events. The details of those we do not have. But of the 4,000 LGSs so far that have signed up for the retailer program, I can't imagine there is one close to you that would not be holding a pre-release event for the biggest game ever on Kickstarter. So keep an eye out for your locals. Talk to your local game stores. Ask if they are getting Cyberpunk. Tell them you're excited about it. The best thing you can do to get the local game store to carry the games that you want to play is to bug them about it and tell them you want to play this game. You have a group of people, you guys don't want to play the game. Get in there, tell them you want to play, show them you guys have the support. The biggest members of the gaming community that can build their communities is the players. You can't rely on stores to do it. We have to do it. So tell your game stores we want Cyberpunk. They'll help you out. I'm guessing most are at least going to dabble, just based on the Kickstarter success. And that doesn't include the retail stuff. So there are going to be pre-release events. Check with your local game stores for more information, probably in the future, because they haven't really said anything yet. So those were the direct questions I had from my buddy Sam, and then I did get some others. One is from Catchy or Cakey, the dumb gonk on Discord, asked me which rarity of card do I think will taste the best. I think it's going to be the Nova Rares. The Nova Rares are definitely going to taste the best. They probably have the most texture to them, so I'm going to go with texture. And then Overly Hasty on Discord asked, what got you into Cyberpunk? So Cyberpunk in general as a thing, I was aware of because of playing Fantasy Flight games with the Android Netrunner LCG. That I didn't get into when it was being produced by a Fantasy Flight game. So that's what made me aware of the IP. And then I have played the Cyberpunk 2077 video game. I have watched Edge Runners, so I am familiar with the IP. What got me into the Cyberpunk trading card game, honestly, when I saw it was a Kickstarter TCG, I was kind of like, the only ones that really are, it's like Altered just got canned, right? So I'm like, man, the only ones that really have been a success are Grand Archive. So it's like, man, is this really going to do it? And then when I saw the card arts, I was like, oh, this looks cool. And then when I saw like Main Deck did a video about the game, and that got me more excited for it. And Dan's a great guy. And then after that point, I was more interested and, really looked into it more and started getting more and more excited about it. And now I'm here, making a podcast about another card game because that's just what I have time for. So that's what got me into Cyberpunk in general and for the TCG. And then I think there was one more question, maybe two more. Katako on Discord asked, which is your favorite card art? My favorite card art that I have seen so far, I do believe I'm going to share this on my screen for those of you that are watching on YouTube or the video version of Spotify. I can share my screen. And it is going to be... Where is it? Where are you? Here we go. I go to something else. And it is the Synapse Burnout quick hack art reveal. I just think this looks insane. And all of the artwork is real people. It's not AI. This is commissioned artists doing the art. I think this thing is crazy. So this is a quick hack. We don't know what the card does. We have just seen card art, and this is the one. Yeah. Synapse Burnout looks absolutely insane. And then, which of the fully revealed legends intrigues you the most? So, the one of the fully revealed legends. So, we have a bunch of cards that they've revealed the art for, where we've seen like the card, but we haven't seen the card text. So, of the ones that intrigue me the most, I just want to make sure I read this correctly. So, I'm going to talk about two. The first one that I'm going to talk about is Pan Am Palmer, because I think she has the potential to be the most broken. So she is a green legend that gives you 2 RAM. And then her ability says call. So when you pay 2 to call her, you can ready her. So she readies herself. So she can use as a resource twice on that turn, possibly. So call, ready this legend. And then her effect is when a friendly unit attacks, you can exhaust her or spend her. Choose a gear from this legend and equip it to that unit if you do ready that unit. So you can play gear like Sandevis stands and Mantis blades and stuff like that are gear upgrades that give bonus power. So with Pan Am, you can pay to put that on Pan Am. You can... And then when you're in the attack phase, you attack with a unit, and then her ability triggers. You can exhaust her. You can move the gear to the unit you attacked with, and then ready that unit. So you can get multiple attacks off with gear with Pan Am as your legend. So the ability to get extra attacks off more than you should is strong in any game. So I think Pan Am has the ability to potentially be the most broken. Of one that intrigues me the most, I think of the ones we have everything for, I think Dum Dum's pretty cool. He's a yellow 2 RAM legend, and his call ability is when you call him, you may defeat a friendly gear, and if you do, you can draw 4 cards. Otherwise, you draw 1 card. So he's always giving you cards, but the ability to potentially draw 4 cards. Drawing cards traditionally in card games is really good. Go figure. So Dum Dum I think is interesting because the ability to get card draw, and Pan Am I think is the potential to be the most broken because of the tempo and the ability to swing multiple times. I think is going to be strong, even though we only have like 48 cards shown. Actually, and I'm going to talk about a third one because Alt Cunningham is a legend, is a blue legend, gives 2 RAM, is go solo for 6 resources. You can move this legend as a unit. And then it says when this legend steals a gig, so when this legend attacks, has a successful hit on the rival and gets to steal a gig, you can remove her from the game, remove alt from the game. And if you do, you can choose a program in your discard or your trash, as it's called in this game, and play it for free. So obviously, if you are paying 6 to get a hit and then remove the legend from the game, there's got to be a crazy program that makes this worth doing. So I'm curious to see what programs are going to be worth removing a legend from the game to be able to play for free. And also what's interesting is normally in the attack, after the attack phase, you can't do anything else. But with alt attacking, stealing the gig, removing from the game, lets you play an event from your discard for free. So there is a lot of potential for crazy things, I think. But we got to see more programs. We haven't seen that many. Like I said, we've seen 48 of the 140 cards total, and I think 14 of them are legends. So there's a lot of units and event programs we haven't seen yet. But so alt is probably just the most interesting to me from the aspect of what can we break with programs, or how can we swing games with the ability to play programs when normally we wouldn't. And then, like I said, Pan Am for the potential to be the most broken. And then Dum Dum just because the ability to draw 4 cards is usually really good in any game. If you told me I had a card where I could pay 2 resources, defeat an upgrade, and draw 4 cards, I'm down. I'm down to clown all the time. Every time. I think that was all the questions I had. Yeah, I don't see any other questions. So, yeah, that's it. We are here. I'm here. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to talk more cards in the future. Right now, the plan is bi-weekly. So I do still do a Star Wars Unlimited podcast that I record every Thursday, Space Arena, Ground Arena. And then, so those other weeks, I'm planning on recording Sleeve Up Samurai. So it'll be 1 week's Space Arena, Ground Arena, the next week, Sleeve Up Samurai. That's my plan for right now. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll have hosts in the future. Maybe I won't. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I will go solo. We'll find out. But thank you for joining me on the first episode of Sleeve Up Samurai. We've got a meta to burn. We'll see you on the next one.